Hello YouTube, your boy Liverpool Fan in Japan and Miyazaki Man Sai here. Over the past year I've had the pleasure of interviewing some absolutely top-notch people, excellent huge YouTubers. My boy Digital Next here, he's on over 1 million subscribers. Jeez Louise, some beauty, some cool people, we even did some game shows. And now it's time to bring some of this format over to Liverpool Fan in Japan channel. Can't wait. Guys, if you want to join me on a podcast or an interview, hit me up, let me know. Happy to include you guys anytime. Without further ado, first up, my mate, my colleague, Kash. Big Man United fan. Not too pleased with how Ten Hag and Man United season is going, but actually, they just won yesterday. Come on, cheer up, bro. Still going to smash you at Anfield. Let's get on with it. Oh, and if you're in touch or you know of any other Liverpool or football YouTuber and want to see them on the Liverpool Fan in Japan podcast too, please get in touch. Help to reach out. Happy to debate tactics, squad building, managers, transfers, the whole shebang. Let's put our football acumen to the test. Bit of banter thrown in and flaunting the dad bod. Let's go. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Liverpool Fan in Japan podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by my mate Kash, big Man United fan. How you doing, man?
Hi everyone, how's it going?
Very good, very good. And not only that, we're going to talk about football, Erik Ten Hag, Man United, upcoming clash with Liverpool. I'm sure there's plenty to look forward to, but let's start first and foremost. The manager, Man United, Erik Ten Hag. What's your feelings on the boss?
It's a tough one. It's a very stressful time. I think he's having a very tough period of his term at United. I think it's not going as everybody would have planned. The transition from season 1 to season 2 has gone completely wrong. I think people expected a lot more progress. We're not seeing the style of play potentially after having a squad for so long. Some of the signings, some of the off-pitch troubles, things around the club, it's not looking too good if I'm honest.
Yep, I hear you. And one of the big criticisms towards Erik Ten Hag, right, is Ange Postecoglou came in, adopted his philosophy straight away. You can see it in the way that they play, and no matter what, if they go down to 10 men, they still go for it in the same manner. Erik Ten Hag, now in second season as well, you can't see a clear style of play. Carragher keeps mentioning it again and again. And why is that? Because he's had enough transfer windows to bring the players and bring his points across. Why is it not working in the way they envisage?
It's a complicated one. There's a few different things. I mean, everyone's constantly jumping onto the fact that we've got an injury hit squad, etc., and it's disrupting him. But I think it's been a bigger transition for him coming from Ajax to Man United and the transition into the Premiership. I don't think he's adopted as well as we'd hoped. I think he's bringing in discipline, which is fine. He's bringing in structure, which is good. But the actual style of play, it's non-existent at times. I mean, I've yet to see a United side playing away consistent 2 weeks in a row. I mean, the back four keeps changing, never mind a style of play. I think players are being shoehorned into places where they don't want to play. That doesn't help. And I think the players themselves look a bit confused out there at times. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few people where they've gone to visit the games live, and obviously at the stadium you get a better appreciation of what's going on. It's very hard to actually say, you know what, we can see what's happening, the transition from back to front, the defensive work, it's just not there. It's like everyone's playing in their own silos, and it's very hard to get your head around, because all this time being spent training, I mean, what's actually going on? I mean, diehard United fan, been supporting them for 30 plus years, but it's really hard to see this, and it's just, you don't know how to feel anymore.
Yep, no, I hear you. And actually, this is very interesting because you mentioned the longevity of you supporting Man United. So back in the day, right, you know, you could really get behind the team. Ronaldo, even back in the days of Scholes, Giggs, Beckham, Keane, you're talking Patrice Evra, people who really understand the club and go for it. And from a Liverpool fan perspective right now, I really am satisfied and happy with the personnel that we've got in the squad. They appear to be, you know, a kind of family unit, really happy playing for the cause. But then in the Man United side, you see, like, when things aren't going well, Fernandes whinging, hands on his hips, imaginary cards, you know, Rashford, head down, all he wants to do is cut inside and take a shot, cut inside and take a shot. Martial, down tools a long time ago, but he's still getting picked for the first team lineup. Are you really happy with the personnel in the Man United squad?
I wouldn't think so. I think the recruitment has been abysmal for about 5 or 6 years now. I think it's been an issue over the longer term as well. Even when David Moyes came in, I mean, he brought in Fellaini, he brought in Di Maria. Fair enough, he couldn't get some of his signings. Louis van Gaal came in, again, completely butchered the squad, brought in a lot of players, again, for that longer term plan. But with Louis van Gaal, you saw something, like you saw a style of play. Yes, it wasn't nice to watch, but there was consistency. It was his way or the highway. He brought in some good talents. It didn't work out. I mean, we had Di Maria, we had Falcao, Memphis Depay. I mean, when those sort of signings came in, you thought maybe maybe there's something here that's going to happen. After that, obviously with Mourinho, we had Zlatan, Pogba, Mkhitaryan, then the Alexis Sanchez. I mean, the mess up I'd call it, but we keep getting glimpses. I think in the past decade, some decent signings. I'd say Ibrahimovic, Bruno Fernandes, and Martinez recently, but I think that's it. Every manager only seems to be getting one or two signings right, which is then causing a bigger impact, because when we go through this cycle of rinse and repeat, we change the manager, someone else wants to come in, they don't like the players, they don't like the system they've adopted, and it's just chop and change. And this is why I say, even though I'm not a big fan of Erik ten Hag by any means, I don't think changing him is the right thing at this moment in time.
Yeah, indeed, and like that's an interesting point of view. Okay, let's take Brighton, right? The Zerbi. Now, when you look at world profile of players, they've lost Caicedo, they've lost McAllister, they've lost a whole kind of wealth of talent, but they've got a clear identity. Their players are inferior to Man United, but as a team and a cohesive unit, they're playing better under the manager's philosophy. Erik ten Hag has brought in Lisandro Martinez, Onana, who can play from the back, Tyrell Malacia. He's now got the forward that he really pined for, Rasmus Højlund, right? He's got these intricate technical players as well. You're talking like Bruno Fernandes, Anthony. He went all out to get Anthony as well. He's got the players who have previously played in the system, played in the Dutch league as well. You'd imagine that they'd be understanding of the kind of Dutch philosophy, kind of fluid system, attacking mentality, don't keep the ball for too long, interchanging positions, that kind of thing. But he explicitly stated, we can't play like how Ajax played. Why is that? We have a lot of players that he handpicked. You mentioned don't change the manager to start again from scratch. That squad is very much a Ten Hag squad. It's built in his image.
It is, and I think this is where I talk about the transition from the Dutch league to the Premier League, where I think he's come in and he's tried to make his mark. It's not worked, and to be fair, his first season, last season, at the start of the games, it wasn't clear what was actually happening. And I know he came in early, he had the pre-season he wanted to, and even this season, but we're not seeing that. I think it's a combination of player relationships along with their capabilities. He's got an approach where he tries to put the burden on the player as well to kind of sense of ownership, but it's not really worked. I mean, you look at Anthony, very big price tag, definitely not worth the price we paid for him. Has he really evolved? Has he become any better in the year he's here? Yes, he's had a haphazard season due to off-the-pitch issues, but he had his best game the other week against Galatasaray, and then he didn't play midweek. He didn't play against Newcastle. Doesn't make any sense. So like the player confidence type of thing doesn't work. You've got Varane sitting on the bench, again not starting, and then you see Luke Shaw playing in his position. This type of decisions really make me question what he's actually doing. And I personally think, right, and I'll probably get slated for saying this, I genuinely don't think he knows what he's doing. It's got to that stage where he's got so much decisions to make and so many different combinations of things to do that he's actually just unsure what the right way is.
So do you think he's playing to the media or expectations, or trying to conform to other people's ideas here? Because Johnny Evans doesn't fit the philosophy at all, and he came back and he's starting in place of Varane. Varane, Champions League winner, World Cup winner, coming from Real Madrid. Casemiro, the same. They're coming in with that winning mentality. They're used to winning, top tier training and philosophy and kind of tactical awareness as well. They've come in and they've dropped off a cliff from someone who's supposed to be a technical manager, right? A visionary of the Dutch style. And he's gone back to Maguire. He's favouring Johnny Evans. Varane is on the bench. Casemiro's form has, straight away nosedived. Talks of him leaving very, very soon. He's got a mixture there of physicality, winning mentality, technical players, expensive players. And you're mentioning that he doesn't know what he's doing. So is it a case that really is a confused philosophy here, and it's just square pegs, round holes kind of thing?
It is, and I think to some extent, if you think about it, I mean, Casemiro was our star performer last season, right? And he played really well. You don't expect somebody to drop off that much over the course of a summer. And I think we go back to the Maguire. Maguire stuck it out, right? I mean, Maguire was up for sale. It didn't work out. He stayed. Credit to him. He's put his hand up and kind of said, I'm going to sit and wait for my chance. And he's taken his chance. He's been our best player, I'd say, for the past few games. And it's you wouldn't think you'd be saying that in the summer, right? And then we've got the injury situation, but I think working with the squad, building relationships is important. Back in the days, we're talking 15, 20 years ago, right, when you had the older players or the more senior players coming in, you'd build your squad around them to allow the younger players to learn from. And as a United fan, I thought that's what we were going to do when Ronaldo came in. It didn't really happen. I mean, he called out how the attitude of certain players wasn't good enough, how they weren't training hard enough, the facilities, and obviously ultimately it was his downfall, where he ended up going up against the manager. We had a similar situation with Pogba a few years before, where he was up against Mourinho due to his due to social media posts and stuff like that. So it's a tough one, and I look at this squad and sometimes I'm like, what are they playing for, one, and what are they doing? Now, Johnny Evans, I completely understand, a bit of a sentimental signing to say, you know what, we'll give you a year, you're going to help the youngsters. Fair enough, the odd cup game, the substitution here, or when we're injury hit. But starting him over Varane in a derby made absolute no sense, and I think you've ruined something there that potentially could have happened. Every player makes mistakes, right? But to say Varane had a cameo, he came on for the injury, and then he didn't do well, and he was obviously at fault for certain things, is not enough to then just bench him. And this thing that we've seen all season, where a right back or a left back is coming into centre back just to keep the other centre back on the bench, it's not sending the right message for me.
Indeed, it's putting the fullbacks in central, positions in place on actual, quality centre back. And additionally, something that I don't think I've heard so much in Man United discussions is I think your kind of wage structure is a bit of an issue as well, because Harry Maguire wouldn't leave, right, because he's on a hefty wedge and he wanted a huge payoff, and no other club will pay what he's paid. Jadon Sancho is one of your top earners as well, come straight in having achieved nothing. He's a young, high potential, high caliber thing, and he's been frozen out completely. Just his wages are wasting away. Rashford signed that new contract, and ever since he signed that new contract, his form has absolutely plummeted as well, right? And you've got these big Champions League, Real Madrid, Casemiro, Varane, who are on hefty wedge as well, and straight away there's no resale value, there's nothing you're going to regain back in that. And then potential youngsters who would be leading the way, right? Your Højlund or whatever, eventually they will earn a high wedge. But then he looks at someone like Mason Mount. Mason Mount would be earning a hefty wedge. One of the reasons why he rejected Liverpool, as well as you've got in the Champions League. You've got like massive wages on players who are nowhere near your key performers.
It's true. I mean, Mason Mount, right? Why did we sign him? Straight up, why did we sign him? We didn't need him. I mean, if you wanted another midfielder and it was a decision between Maddison and Mount, why go to Mount? It makes absolute no sense, right? And then give him the number 7 shirt to say he's going to thrive under pressure. He's done nothing, right? I mean, I've watched him play so many times quite closely, and I'm not seeing anything. With the wage structure, I think that's not as much as something that we can pin entirely on Erik ten Hag. I think from a club structure perspective, especially the period we had under Ed Woodward, where players were coming in, being signed, and I think it was for the sake of getting the signing more than anything else. Sancho at best should have been earning 150, 175,000 pound a week, but not 375 that he's on. I think which is what he's on. And then it's like we had this period under Ollie, right? Club legend, but he's really made such an impact in a way which is not desirable, because he set this mentality or approach where the players feel like they're going to get wrapped in cotton wool all the time and they need hand holding, whereas at the end of the day you've got a job to do, right? And that comes foremost more than anything else. You've got to put the hours in, and you've got to manage yourself and put yourself about on the pitch. I mean, we see Rashford, right, walking around. Why can't he just be given that time away from the squad? He's not doing anything to even come on as a sub. I'll be straight up honest, right? And we talk about the club not being in a good position, but my question is then, why is somebody up above not stepping into this Sancho situation and saying we're wasting 375,000 pound a week on him, and he's not doing anything, he's training obviously with the reserves, and it doesn't add up. And that's been happening over the years. We had Ronaldo on at 500,000 pound a week, made sense because he was the marquee signing, but I'm pretty sure the club made much more for marketing, right, with him than obviously what they were paying him. So I can see that as an investment. But the rest, it just doesn't seem to add up. We had the Alexis Sanchez scenario, right, which was an absolute crazy situation. And it's just we don't seem to learn from our mistakes. I mean, Richard Arnold now stepping away, I don't know what change that's going to bring. But the fact that we don't even have a sporting director really concerns me. And I'll tell you this now, right? I mean, I see Darren Fletcher there as part of the mix as one of the technical people. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, what's he achieving? What's he offering? There's nothing there.
I tell you what he's offering. They're kind of giving him incentives, backhanders, because his kid's apparently very talented, so they're wanting his kid in the academy. There you go. So there's one
I
there.
mean, we're not sentimental FC, right? I mean, I see a lot of fans saying, "Oh, this," and we need to. It's Erik ten Hag out, but if he's out, then who do we bring in? I mean, which manager is currently there that we can say, "Well, come in, we'll take this particular squad and get away with it and make a difference." I saw somebody on, I think it was BN Sports, where he was saying he would give the job to Xabi Alonso, right, from Leverkusen.
Quality. Yeah.
I mean, one, would he really come in, being from Liverpool? I don't think he would. Two, does he have the credentials to come and do something in the Premier League? And I think this is where we've gone wrong quite a few times. I'll be honest. Ten Hag was sold to me as the manager who would come and bring in the change. He brought in the discipline, the routine, but I think his way with players, especially this thing where we have signings where he has such a big influence on players he's already worked with, on
Anthony, Mount.
Anthony, Martinez only being the good one, right? And it doesn't seem right with me. And I think we've ended up with a squad now which is not trimmed the way it should. But we have players who don't fit in and are just there for the wage packet. I look at Højlund and genuinely think he's a good guy who's got a lot of talent. And I'm concerned he's going to ruin himself at United.
Yeah. Yes. He's at the wrong time, at the wrong place, because he would have been an ideal person. Let's say you have a front line of Tevez and Rooney, and you put Højlund as a third one who can come on or interchange with one of them, or build up his confidence when he's on form. Keep playing him when he needs a breather. You've got the experienced head to lead the line and keep you going. He's a talent, but he's not what you need right now, and especially all that money wasted on like Anthony, right? Anthony and Mason Mount. Amrabat, why did you sign Amrabat? He is definitely not what you need at this moment in time. So, okay, I put it to you, and I've got my own view of how, if I was manager, how I'd make Man United play, because this is what I think for the key attributes for your personnel, how you could win. But what would you do? What would be your philosophy, your style of play? Which players would you fit into a function to get those game-winning conditions for that Man United squad right now? What are the biggest changes in like a 2-minute summary?
I mean, I think we need a bit more consistency, right? And I definitely think there is, I'm going to call this out, Onana is not playing the way he used to play, and he's not playing by certain the way he played in pre-season. I watched all the pre-season games, right? And he was confident, he was out of his box. It's like he's been constrained. Yes, he's been lobbed a couple of times, but that happens when you're that kind of a keeper, right? I think he's playing within himself. He's constantly doubting, do I go forward, do I do this, which is causing these errors. The errors he's making, no top flight keeper should be making, right? So it's clearly in the mind. There's mind games going on. He's not confident within his own capabilities. But I'd stick with him, right? I'd stick with him. At this moment in time, with Martinez not available, I'd go with Varane and Maguire. And Maguire purely based on his recent credentials. He's put his hand up and he's stuck to it. I'd say Shaw and Wan-Bissaka remain our best fullbacks. I think Diego Dalot, even though he's been offered a new deal, he doesn't cut it for me. He at best he's a sub for United, right? I think he doesn't offer enough. Now into the midfield, it's an absolute mess based on the number of players and positions we have, right? But for me, I'll be honest, right? I think Bruno at the front of the midfield, and then Scott McTominay and Casemiro is the closest we're going to get. Eriksen doesn't have the legs. Amrabat hasn't proven to be what he was meant to be. And I say Scott McTominay, he was meant to leave the club, right? Because we were bringing in Amrabat and we got Mountain and stuff like that. But I don't think he's a long-term solution. He is something that we can work with. I think we can do that. Now, Casemiro, how long is he going to last? He's not a long-term solution either. Probably a season or two at best. There's already talk of him leaving in January, which concerns me. And then up front, I would have Højlund. And I would genuinely have Garnacho and Palestri, because Rashford isn't doing it. Martial should have gone a long time ago. And Anthony, I personally think, has been an entire waste of money.
Yep. No, I hear you. So you're playing 4-2-3-1 by the sounds of it. Two holding midfielders. Bruno ahead in a free role.
And I would just give them time, right? We're talking about giving the manager time. You need to give the squad time as well. I see the player doesn't perform well. People on Twitter are slating him and he's being pulled up on everything. and then you've got all the media runs around them. I mean, let's look at last week, right? Rashford and Martial both had appalling games. The agenda this week has all been against Martial. No one, it's kind of just dropped off that Rashford just dropped a clanger in that game, right? And I understand homegrown player and homegrown talent, but it needs to be a fair playing field. But I would definitely give the same bunch of players a longer run of games so they can gel together, they can work together. And I think the constant changes is disrupting everyone.
Yep,
I don't think we've had 2 to 3 weeks where we've had the same team. And I understand injuries are a problem, but I think we need a bit more consistency, right? And I think that consistency also needs to come in game management. Okay, if plan A isn't working, plan B, plan C, you're a manager, you need to be doing that. We do that in day-to-day living, so why can't that happen in the game, right?
So let's talk about plan A then. Plan A, you have Højlund up front. What is the role of Højlund? What are your instructions to Højlund? What are your instructions to Fernandes behind him? And your 2 wingers, what do you expect your 2 wingers to do? What are the instructions?
Make runs. Højlund's job has to be make running in behind, because for too many years now we've had strikers holding up the ball, sending it wide, or then not being in the position to score in the first place, right? And I think the way has to be for him to make the run-ins behind. Garnacho, yes, he'll cut in, but most of the time him and Pellistri, if they're getting the ball in, and Bruno looking for that ball over the top just to unlock that midfield, unlock that defence. And then hopefully with the push from the full-backs and the midfield, yes, Casemiro and Scott McTominay probably have an eye on the defensive duties as well, but pushing up will hopefully give us a chance of winning the ball in midfield and not getting run over the way we are. We've got Eriksen, who comes in, we have the same issue. Mount is loitering around and not knowing where to play. We have Anthony, who just has one thing, does a little trick and then passes back. Yes, he may take his man on once, but we're not getting the ball in once, and his reluctance to use his right foot is an issue. I think Pellistri, direct, is trying more, and because he's not got as much to lose, there's a lot more risk to reward. And Garnacho's obviously taken his opportunity with Rashford not doing well.
Yep, no, I hear you. Yeah, yep. So here's where I would go with the Dutch philosophy, right? I'd go way back into the days of Rinus Michels, famous Dutch manager, okay? This is what Ten Hag should have done. Because of the personnel, you got Onana, great ball playing goalkeeper, right? He needs the options available to him, and the best way to do that is it's kind of like a W shape and also a reverse W shape. This is how Dutch philosophy used to work. So you're going to have your 2 wing backs predominantly just give you the width, holding there but not bombing forwards. So you're talking, I'm going to take Dalot on the right ahead of Wan-Bissaka, because Wan-Bissaka's a great defender, but he's not involved in the build-up, or he's not great at the build-up. Luke Shaw on the left is a given as well. Varane, ball playing centre-back at the back, and Maguire to clean up, physical prowess against the physical teams. Then in front of them, you got to have your Casemiro, right? He is the one that everything pivots off. He's got the technique, the techers, he can tackle as well, he can distribute the ball around. So you've got your 4, you've got Casemiro in front of him, but next to him, I'd probably put Eriksen, because in this formation you need to move the ball around, you need to transition the ball quite quickly ahead of him, because Eriksen and Casemiro will be sitting in front of your back line. Eriksen and Casemiro can also break the lines with progressive balls. Bruno Fernandes is the key to your whole system here because of his numbers, his ability to get assists, to get goals. The whole game, your key player is Bruno Fernandes. If he has a good game, you might win the match. If he has an off game, you're going to struggle. In that regard, Man United used to play with 2 rapid wingers going down the line, crossing, beating the man 1-2 in around the back, or quality delivery, right? You don't have those wingers anymore. You just don't. Rashford doesn't assist, and Garnacho and Pellistri. Everyone wants goals. Everyone wants to cut inside and get goals. So I would actually play with 2 wide playmakers. So on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, if you can bring Sancho back in, Sancho is a wide playmaker. He's never been a winger. He's not rapid. He's not the most skillful either, but he's very good at interlinking play, as he did with Dortmund, right? So you have Bruno Fernandes in the 10, Rasmus Højlund up front. Højlund, I don't think is going to be that Van Nistelrooy 20-goal striker anytime soon, but he makes good runs. He's pacey. He's got a good work ethic, so he can stretch defences to open up, opportunities for Fernandes, or hold it up, play it back to Fernandes. But on the sides, it's got to be between Mason Mount or Anthony or Garnacho or Sancho, the kind of wide playmakers who can play those short interlink passes, your 1-2s, give and goes, and allow the opportunity, for space to open up. If you play like the way you do now, which is get it to Rashford wanting to cut inside and shoot, Bruno Fernandes wanting to cut inside from wide and shoot, Garnacho wanting to cut inside and shoot.
I mean, the way we're playing, we're just waiting for someone to do something. It's Moments
Yeah.
FC, right? It's literally what we've become. The club's being
Yeah.
run like Sentimental FC, and then we're on the pitch, it's Moments FC. It's very disheartening to watch. Like, I have to think twice before I watch a game because
Mm.
it stresses me out so much, right? And it's like, what do I want to be doing here?
Yeah, and if we did this for the first time ever in history, you do a combined Liverpool and Man United 1-11 when we meet right on the 18th or 17th. Who you got in goal?
I think there's no questions there, right? It's just
Yeah, okay, straight away. Who you got at right back?
probably Trent.
Yeah, okay. Who's your two centre
Even though
backs?
I can't stand him, right? I think that's what's going to happen.
Who's your two centre backs?
I'd say Martinez and Varane for me.
You take Martinez and Moran over Van Dijk, over Kanate, over
Well,
Matip,
Van
didn't you?
Dijk's not what he used to be, right? So I'm thinking
He's getting back
forward
there.
long term.
Statistically on top of every single metric as a defender this season.
All right,
not
on
last
that
season.
note then, I'd probably, so definitely Martinez with Van Dijk.
Okay, so massive and short. Okay,
Yeah.
and yeah. Left back. Who are you taking left back?
Has to be Luke Shaw.
Luke Shaw over Robertson,
Yeah.
over Andy Robertson.
Yeah.
In what regard? What way is Luke Shaw better than
I
Andy
just think
Robertson?
he offers a lot more. I think he's good one-on-one in terms of defending, and I think he's less culpable to make a mistake. And I think going forward, he interlinks much better.
So Robertson has been top of the left back assist charts for I don't know how many seasons since he started. And then defensively, he's solid. We never get penetrated down the left, but obviously Trent on the right hand side, that's where people target as well. And in terms of interlinking as well, Robertson and Mane has a great partnership. What partnership does Shaw have? Who does he play
Well,
with?
Mane is not here anymore, one, right? And two, this is the thing. I mean, it's hard to establish, but obviously because he's been injured, we have that issue. But I would still go with Shaw over Robertson.
Okay, yeah. So there's your pick. You're the guest on the show. Okay, central defensive midfielder. We'll play one defensive midfielder, two number eights, two wingers, and a forward. Your lovely 4-3-3. So who's the holding midfielder?
I don't think I can really nominate anyone from United compared to Liverpool for that one. I have to be honest with that one, right?
Yeah, McAllister. Then you putting McAllister or Endo or who are we going holding midfielder?
It's between, well, you see, McAllister younger, a lot more to offer. Casemiro, probably go with Casemiro purely on experience, I think, more than anything else.
Okay, so sentimental value here. Days past Casemiro.
Well, yeah, but I think for now, I would go with Casemiro, and I think that's purely on experience. I think he'd probably handle any pressures and stuff like that a lot better. Game management, things like that. Yes, he is culpable to being run past because of the legs, but it's a risk you kind of got to take.
Okay, two midfielders in front of him, two number eights.
One's Bruno. And then, what options do we have?
Soboslai, Gravenberch, McAllister, McTominay, Mason Mount, Amrabat.
I think it has to be that. I think he's done really well since he's coming, by the way. So
Sexy Soblers, yep, absolutely. Cracking player, good looking lad as well. Two wingers, who you got on the wings? Or right wings, nailed on surely.
it's obvious, right? There's no debate about that one.
Yeah, absolute legend Mo Salah running down the wing, but left.
So
Who you got on the left?
the Egyptian king on the right hand side, and on the left, who do you have on the left again?
We got Luis Diaz.
Definitely not Rashford because his current state, right? Current form and everything. I'd probably go with. It's a tough one. I can't decide between Garnacho and Luis Diaz.
Really? You reckon you rate Garnacho as high as Luis Diaz?
I actually do rate him, and I think he makes something happen every time he plays. Whether it's I don't think he's phased by the opposition, right? I think his technical skills are there. And this, I'm not saying this purely because he scored a wonder goal, right? I've been watching him very closely since last season, and I think he's got it in him to take the game to the opposition. But I'd say because that's not enough in this case, it'd probably have to be Luis Diaz.
Luis Diaz is like an absolute menace. I think he's got one of the highest take-ons in the Premier League this season in terms of, I think it's Matoma and Luis
that's
Diaz.
Success rate as well, right?
Yeah, and Hung Son Min and Luis Diaz and Mitoma, Pedro Neto maybe as well. They've got the most successful take-ons in the Premier League, and they just drive straight at you and go right through you. So, okay, and up front, who we got up front?
Well, I'm not gonna stick Paul Hyland up there, right? I mean, to be fair, right, he'd probably do better with Diaz and Salah up front, but
Who wouldn't? Yeah.
it's a tough one. I'd say
You saw us play against you last season. Who was the most deadly, clinical against United on the 7-0.
It's Gakpo, isn't it?
You put Gakpo. Classy finishes for sure. Yeah, holding up the play, false nine, Dutch flair. Yeah, good note to end. So
And I know he obviously he went to Liverpool at a time where potentially he should have gone to United, but I think technically he's really good, and I think especially at the age, I think he'll do well where he is. You see, this is the thing, right? Just on that, the way like obviously you've pushed out your older players and you've kind of put in a fresh set. Yes, it may not work entirely. Like it didn't work last season, right? And it's you've revamped and it's not may not work immediately, but I think the signs are already there. And yes, it's an off season where some of the other teams aren't performing as well, but I think you can't take that away. Liverpool are doing well. I mean, yes, Spurs lost three on the bounce, but they still are doing well compared to previous seasons and the style of play. It's a game you want to watch, if that makes sense.
yep, I hear you.
And I think that's quite key, especially from a footballing perspective, that you want to watch. Yes, it's all about the 3 points and the win or progressing to the next round, but if it's a good game and you're getting good value in terms of your players are putting up a fight and you can see a certain way, and if you go down fighting that way, you don't mind. But that's what we don't have, and I'm sure there's many other United fans who agree with me. But it's one of those tough periods, right, where you're really doubting whatever's happening.
Yeah, I understand. You're not looking forward to the game, and you don't even have the famous Jurgen Klopp quote that if you're going to lose, you're going to lose in the most beautiful way. You don't. You just kind of fold over. You just, and even when you're winning, you don't expect to get the points at the end
I
somehow.
was the Champions League game. I was watching it with my dad, and
Galatasaray.
I've stopped watching games with my dad. Right, that's purely because he still has hope and I don't. And they were 2-0 up, and he goes, "Surely not." And then he was 3-1, and he goes, "Surely not." And I go, "You know what? Just watch what's going to happen." I just knew they were going to blow it, and it was 3-all, right? And it's like, if you can't contain a game, I mean, there's one thing going 2 goals up front, right, and then finishing a team off. But if you're in that position and you can't control a game, then there are serious issues. We were doing really well. We were 3-1 up. He brings on Martial, who had an absolute stinker once he came on. He was non-existent in that game. He mixed it up with, I think, Amrabat came off and Mainu came on. I think it kind of disrupted things slightly. I mean, Mainu's really good, right? But again, he's very, very early. It's good signs for the future. We can't build a season around him.
Indeed.
And it's just things like that, and it just disrupted everything, and it went bad. I mean, Newcastle's 1-0 win last weekend has to be the most horrific 1-0 beating I've seen, right?
Yes.
It was abysmal.
And if you guys get stuffed against Liverpool in the upcoming game, do you think that's it? Ten Hag gone?
Gone, and then who comes in? An ex-player comes in, and then we go in that same cycle. This is the issue, right? And I think until we get a sporting director in and until we sort recruitment out, we're going to have to suck up to these kind of results and performances. And I think the club, end of the day, running a football club is like a business, right? As a business, you need to think about this and say, we're going to have to take a hit for the longer term gain. There is no immediate fix to United. There is no one manager out there that I said, come in. I mean, I'll be honest, you can put Pep or Klopp into United and there wouldn't be immediate turnaround. You saw the time of period that Klopp needed at Liverpool to come in and transition that, and you saw how it reaped reward at the end. The thing for me is, though, when you looked at that, you knew what Klopp was bringing and you could see that happening. With Ten Hag, I don't see that happening. Am I prepared for another reset? I'm actually not. I'm so sick of this, right? Gary Neville said it this week. He's bored of watching his own club and he doesn't want to commentate anymore. It's the same. It's like, I won't be watching the game tonight against Chelsea. I've just made other plans, but there'd be a time where I'd cancel everything else and watch them. I'll check the score, I'll read the prayer ratings, but it's just, you don't want to put yourself through it anymore.
But isn't a reset more exciting than what you're seeing now? If you can't see the vision and the end goal of what Ten Hag's trying to achieve, building step by step to get somewhere, get to the promised land, actually have an attempt at a title chase, isn't a reset the unknown? Like, opportunity comes from conflict, right?
I understand, but I mean, when you've had 5 or 6 resets in the past 10 years and it's always ended up in the same fashion, right? I'm reading this week, there's leaks about him having lost the dressing room. He banned, I think, 5 or 6 journalists yesterday from attending the press conference.
Yeah.
And then you've got people saying, oh, well, Fergie did the same with BBC. I mean, comparing Ten Hag and Fergie, completely different arguments, right? Yes, they both desire discipline and have a certain way, but you have to go by results and performances. I am yet to see a performance where I can say, we blew away the opposition because of game management, man management, and from a tactical perspective. It's always been moments. You look at the the Champions League game. We had a fantastic goal by Garnacho. We had a fantastic goal by Bruno. We're 2-0 up. But there is nothing else happening, right? And then the keeper makes the mistakes. And it's like, where do you start? Yes, it was the right decision to move on from De Gea, build for the future. We got Onana at a fairly good price, I think 47 million it was. But again, the mistakes he's making, you don't expect them at this level, and you don't expect them based on his credentials as well. Yes, he's not won much, but the performances he was dropping last season and the season before, you'd expect him to make that transition quite well. And if anything, I think it's easier for a goalkeeper to move to a different league and come in because of the type of work that they do. But it's not happening, and I am worried that it's not going to end well.
Indeed, indeed. And, just thinking back to your transfer, headline transfer incoming, number 7, Mason Mount, wearing the 7 shirt. Mason Mount. Wow.
This is it, right? And I look back at that, and instantly I thought, what's he going to do? I haven't really seen much of Mason Mount as in good offering, even for an England shirt. I felt he struggled. There were times at the World Cup and the Euros where it's like, he doesn't need to be playing. I mean, there's better options, right? And I look back at what was potentially available. I mean, we went and, all due respect, we went and signed Højlund for 71, 74 million. We could have used that money, got Kane or got Victor Osimhen, right? There were the options there to have an out-and-out striker, and it would have offered a lot more than what we have. Højlund's yet to score a goal in the Premier League, and I understand the service isn't there, but we've always had this service issue. The only two people who've scored decent goals for us are Ronaldo and Ibrahimovic, and let's say they were coming in as senior players to help nurture the younger players. I think it was 2016, Lukaku joined United, and you thought it was going to be it, right? I mean, the way his fell off, I don't know if United ruined his career, right? Or what's going on with those Timberlands that he wears, but I had hope when we got an out-and-out striker, right? That this is going to be a period where we're actually going to be able to do something. It's just not worked.
And that's the thing, where are your sources of goals? Because literally every team needs someone who can get assists, someone who's very well versed at getting assists. This season for us, Salah's assist charts are off the roof. He is, ever since Mane left, right, Salah's really cheered up and played for the team, and he's like, okay, I'm willing to share around the goals. He's not as fast as he used to be. His playmaking skills are on point. His assists are sky. In Man United, I still see Bruno Fernandes as more of a goal scorer, right? Rashford does not get assists. He just does not get assists. And where else is your source of assists?
Right?
Goal creation.
We actually don't have a goal machine as such. We don't even have to say that, okay, we're going to get 10 goals from such and such, 15 from this. It just doesn't happen. I think Casemiro was our leading goal scorer before he got injured, right? It's not good enough when he's your centre defensive midfielder. And we've got people like Johnny Evans has got a goal this season, right? And then someone else hasn't, and it really concerns me. Rashford, right? People say he's fell off. I don't think he's fallen off. I think he's come down to where he always was. Last season was a spike for whatever reason. He did really well, right? He did better than his entire expectations, but I don't think that's his new bar. We can't rely on him in that sense. He's struggling, whether it's mentally, off the pitch, whatever it is. He needs time away to sort himself out, because the way he's behaving on the pitch, and even when around other players, it's just not good enough. And yes, he's an easy scapegoat, but he's not doing anything not to warrant the criticism.
Agreed. Man United players, right? This is a word that I really attach to the current squad. They sulk a lot. When things aren't going well, their heads are down. They're not mentality monsters. They sulk. They down tools a little bit. And it's not that they're not quality. It's just when things don't go the way they need to go, you haven't got grafters. I don't see too many. Scott McTominay, he will fight for the cause. So will Johnny Evans. So will Maguire. In fact, actually, the English-British lads, they actually maybe have a bit more attachment than someone like Martial. But I don't think you've got many grafters in that team who are really,
And if you look at Scott McTominay, does he have it individually to technically change a game? No, he doesn't. But yes, he will fight. He will run for you, and he'll potentially be in the right positions. He'll take a hit or two, right? He'll wipe out the odd player here and there just to kind of prime Paul Scholes type. But he doesn't have that thing where he's going to transition and change a game. I think Bruno, for as good as he is, and yes, his stats are amazing, he doesn't have it in him to lift himself up out of that sulk. Once that sulk starts, it's a downhill journey from there.
He's not a captain. He's not a captain at all. If you saw your captain doing that, even in Sunday League or anything like that, you see your captain moaning, whinging, hands on there, waving imaginary cards, diving, crying. That's
I mean,
captains.
imaginary cards, right? It's become part of the game in some sense. I mean, you see all the people going to the ground, and that's the first thing they do. They want a reaction from the ref. I think put that aside. But in terms of regrouping the players, lifting their spirits, no. The fact when you start mourning at other players, yes, they make a mistake, but if you start mourning at them, they're going to lose any confidence they have in themselves. I
Or
saw.
respect for you, though. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true as well. I saw the Newcastle game, and there was an instance where I think. The ball got run in on the right, and they had a shot. Obviously, Maguire had to clear the lines, and he was having an absolute pop up, saying, "Why have they transitioned so quickly without being any sort of attempt to block it up?" And it's like he recognises that he's on the pitch, but where's everyone else doing that? I don't see anything from Onana. Right? We saw the glimpses in pre-season when he had a pop at Maguire. Since then, he's not said a word to anyone. Martial has never been someone to fight, right? He's just been that one who's got good finishing, but it's not there when you can't produce 15, 20 goals a season. He scored one goal against Everton, right? And everyone's like, Martial's back, this is it. But he didn't
back,
do
baby.
anything else in that entire game.
One goal, Marshall. Yeah. No, you have to cling on to the hope, and it's the hope that kills you. One goal when he's back.
You know what? I've been through it now with obviously all these transitions, and I'm like, I mean, I'm the type of guy who was really upset when your key player would get injured. You'd really take it to heart, right? Thinking, you know what? You feel sorry for them. What's going to happen? Right now, there's like somebody gets injured. I'm like, all right, like, what do you want me to do? Type of thing. It's really demoralizing. And I didn't have to think twice to come on here because I knew I was going to get slated afterwards for being so negative. But there are no positives. I'll be honest, Simon. I look at it and I'm like, what positives do we actually have? Yes, there's some good talent coming through. Menu, Palestri, Garnacho, they're performing, but their level is perhaps here, but what the club needs is up here. And yes, they'll be in the transition, but we need more from others. And this thing about the media saying Rashford needs more time, he's a senior player now. He's been on the scene. I think Louis van Gaal brought him in, right? So he's been on. He's survived Van Gaal. He's survived Mourinho, Oli, Ralph Rangnick. I mean, you don't really want to call that a term, do you? But I think underlying issues, the structure, the way the club is, and I think again, Eric Ten Hag's probably at the wrong place at the wrong time. And I'll be honest, I think he's not me. I don't think he's cut it for the Premier League. Whether he can turn that around in the next 6 months or so, if he stays, I don't know. We can only hope.
Will United get top four? Because you mentioned nothing to look forward to, really. As a Man United fan, perhaps as a general football fan, the football this season has been amazing and amazing goals flying in. And there is a title race here. Do Man United make top four? Or if they don't, who's your top four?
So top four for United, it depends on how they perform in January, right? So let's just put that to the side. So for me, it's Arsenal to win it.
To win it?
Yeah, Liverpool second, City third, and then Spurs fourth.
Okay, and what's your reasoning for Arsenal? A Gunners fan.
I just think they got close. They got close last season, right? And I think even though they've had a haphazard start this season and they've not floored, I think they're winning those games, that you're not meant to win sometimes. And I think when you get on one of those runs, it can be quite dangerous. But it's going to go close. It's not going to be as obvious as City just running away with it for once, right? I think it won't even be a top two. The top three will be close. But I think the decisions will be made against those big games against each other, right? Those top flight games.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting watch, but I can't see City winning it, right? I just can't see it happening this season. I think Liverpool and Arsenal are off on a really good run. And for me, I think it's possibly going to be Arsenal.
Yep. Okay. I hear you. I'm very, very confident actually in Liverpool winning this season for one reason only. When you talk about mentality monsters, right? Klopp has always built a team full of captains. Andy Robertson is Scottish captain. Alisson, probably the best keeper in the world. Van Dijk is Dutch captain. Trent is vice captain of Liverpool. Szoboszlai is captain of Hungary. Endo is captain of Japan. I think Luis Diaz is captain of Colombia. Salah is captain of Egypt. McAllister, World Cup winning starting midfielder alongside Messi as well. And then you got the kind of chaotic childhood ignorance of Nunes. You never know what's going to happen. It might come off his arse, it might come off his forehead, it might come off his shoulder. But when you got that kind of X factor like Balotelli, right, but actually a better version who's got good attributes and good attributes and a good attitude. When you've got so many captains moulding this team, when the going gets tough, they're the leaders. They're the ones that pull you through. That's something that Man United don't have. They're not filled with captains and mentality monsters. And that's why I think Liverpool will pip Arsenal I think it's going to be Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Tottenham.
Fair enough. Well, we can probably get together at the end of the season to evaluate. But going back to United's chances, I think if you look at recently, you've seen a lot of news about they've got the best record for the past 5 games. But that record is no use when you're performing the way they are. I mean, with all due respect, that wasn't against any decent teams, as in any top flight teams, right? I looked at the stats and I think it was 1 win against top 9 opposition away in a season and a half, right? And well, almost season and a half. That's not good enough. I mean, if you've got 1 draw in all those away games against the top flight, it's not good enough. And we've watched football and grown up in an era where top flight was top 4, right?
Yes.
And now the media are saying top 9, top 10, top 6 at times, right? It's grown quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's not good at all. And I understand there are certain teams where you turn up and it's quite sticky, but there is nothing that we're seeing. If you asked me right now that where are United going to end up at the end of the season, realistically, I'd say they struggle to stay in the top 10.
I agree with you, and you know, this brings a huge smile to my face. If you see the lineup, the fixture list, and you see Aston Villa against Manchester United or Brighton against Manchester United, I would tune in to watch that because I'd expect Man United to get done like 1-0 or 2-1.
I mean, just on them, right? Unai Emery and then De Zerbi coming in, picking up a pack of players. I think Unai Emery more, right? And just making them gel and work. That is the effect of a manager. And whether it's training, whether it's motivational talks, or whether it's the players wanting to play for the manager. Do I look at United and say each one of them wants to play for Ten Hag? I don't. I just don't see it, right? There's a lot of players wanting to play for themselves. But fair enough, if you're playing for themselves, they're still not offering 100%. Now, whether they can't offer 100% because they don't want to, or they're mentally not there, or they're physically so tired from all this running and training that they're doing, which I can't see.
They don't know what they're doing it for.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the concern. And it's how long do you go on with that? I definitely think if we're going to make a change, it has to be end of season. The mid-season change, we've done it too many times, right? And I'm very, very, very reluctant to bring in an ex-player again. Because the sentimental thing kicks in again. I'd give it time. I'd give him to the end of the season. He deserves that, I'd say, purely just to give us everything that he can do, right? If he's not doing it by the end of season 2, it's time to move on.
Yep, and one realistic signing for January, one player that you think could make a big difference to Man United's season in January, an attainable, realistic one. You know, you're not going to grab Harry Kane at this stage from Bayern Munich.
We need a striker, and I'm going to say it again. I think the fact that we're so dry up on goals, right? You need a striker that can make something happen. There's talk about potential Osimhen wanting out of Napoli. Will we go and grab him in January? I don't see that happening. There's talk about potentially Griezmann. There was also Timo Werner. See, yes, I understand it's been a failed approach, but it's like we don't learn our lesson, right? We're making the same mistakes again and again. But we need to understand what we're going to do with the players we have. We can go and sign someone else right now. I think Amrabat needs to go back. It hasn't worked. He was meant to be the pivot with Casemiro to give us and unlock everything. It just hasn't worked at all. I think he's fighting for his life every second on the pitch, which is causing things to go wrong. Right? He's just sliding around everywhere. There's no ball retention. There's no composure. I think we're going to suffer with Mount, right? We're going to play him when we don't need to play him, and we're going to have him in the team when we don't need to, purely because we've spent that amount of money, right? Reguilon, I'd keep. I think he's a very good backup left back, and I think he's done well when he's played for United. He's shown that. I was quite disheartened that he was dropped to the bench and Luke Shaw was drafted straight in, but then again, I can understand it's he's been there long enough to kind of have that, but especially when you're coming back for an injury, I just expected a bit more of a transition, fight for your place type of thing. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Casemiro leaving, with Varane leaving as well, because if they do leave, we've got an issue, and I don't know when Martinez is going to be back. And again, is he going to be at 100% when he comes back? Is he going to be the same player? We don't know, right?
Exactly, and even if he is back, you might still pick Maguire and Evans over him because that seems to be the go-to pairing when down in the dumps. And I think you're right about like Amrabat in the World Cup. That was the absolute peak of his possible powers in the limited game span. You've got a kind of limited scope here. He played above himself, and he's in the United, and he just can't cope with the pace of Premier League or the team in transition at the moment. And I think you do need that player in the centre of the pitch with a bit of something about them to really, dictate the play, and demand the ball. I think Douglas Luiz at Aston Villa is a cracking player. He's growing and growing. He demands what he can tackle. He can play make. He's got techers as well. He's got big personality. And I think he did an interview where he said, I argue with Emery all the time, but in a nice way, because he expects a lot of me and I expect a lot of myself. So that's the kind of player you want. But also, you need that kind of playmaker out wide. In absence of Sancho, who you've relegated off to the kids and away from lunch, I think Federico Chiesa at Juventus is attainable, and he is a really, really good player for linking between the wide kind of transitions and the forward as well. Højlund would benefit a lot from someone like Chiesa roaming around him, trying to create those opening and chances. I think he's better than Kulusevski as well at Tottenham. So I think Chiesa's a good shout. But Man United is not just a patch. You need surgery. You need major surgery to improve that team.
Yeah, and right, I think Ralph Ranier called it out when he was here that this needs to be a bigger issue. And you see, I think we were missold this then as well. Yes, he nominated Ten Hag to be the manager to sign, which he offered obviously that advice, but then I still expected him to move up into the club, into the sporting director's role, because I think that would have fixed a lot of things. But the fact that we don't have that and is causing a bigger problem, and we're seeing that we're suffering 10 years on. Had we fixed these issues probably a couple of years after Alex Ferguson had left? And let's be honest, when Alex Ferguson left, we'd peaked with whatever we had. It was done, right? It needed a rebuild. Had he stayed on, he would have had to do the same thing and probably suffer to the likes of City and Liverpool coming through the ranks. But again, even if you bring him back in, can he make this work? Do you see what I mean? I think it's a collective mess which has grown to such a point where there's a lot more to do.
Right? On that point, I think Ferguson could do something, and there's one big reason for that. In that final Ferguson season where he won the league with Van Persie or whoever, that is not a title-winning squad. That squad was not a title-winning squad.
And that got exposed as soon as Moyes came in, right? But
exactly right.
That's the thing though, right? Those players at that time still had the mentality to play and fight for a club, right? Which was instilled by him. Do most of our players currently have that? I mean, I'm going to give you an example. Rashford playing for Fergie, Anthony, players like that, right? It just wouldn't happen. Because they just don't have, I'd say, the credentials to fight for the manager. It's all about playing for themselves, playing within themselves significantly. I'd rather not do something and not make a mistake and not get criticised by the media. And yes, with 10, 15 years on, social media is a much bigger thing than what it was back then. You get scapegoated, you get memed, and everything happens, right? But
it's the courage. It's the courage to play and show what you're about and show what you got, instead of playing it safe, because you could sign any player to play it safe, right? Basics of get a good first touch, pass and move or whatever, that kind of thing. But it's about showing the qualities that you have. And when you play for like a club like Manchester United, you've got to have something about you. You can't just be, bog standard, one of a pack.
What concerns me the most is when I look at the team and the playing 11, especially the recent couple of games, I only see youngsters coming through the academy doing that, which concerns me, that the recruitment isn't right. I mean, yes, we're bringing in big name players. I mean, Anthony for me is best 40 million player, and that's on current market standards, right? I mean,
you wouldn't get 40 million for now.
We're going to lose out a lot of money on him. And see the Sancho situation. I'm reading things where Sancho's potentially going to long it out, go on loan, and then see what happens at the end of the season. And when you've got that sort of player against a manager type of situation, it's not good to have. I mean, if anything, a good manager for me resolves these situations for the betterment of the team. And there's been times when you've wanted Sancho available on the bench or starting, right? Rashford having obviously the suspension and maybe giving Garnacho a break, switching things around, playing on the right where we've not had anyone. And especially this thing about putting Bruno to the right or Mason Mount to the right, it's never worked. It's never going to work.
I know. I just don't think when you look at your team, right? Do you really like the people in there? Forget about the talents and the skill sets. Look at the person themselves. Can you honestly say you like a bunch of these Man United players?
I like some, but then I can't stand some at the same time as well, right?
Right. You have some that you literally cringe.
And the concern I have is when you look at, I'm giving you an example. I was watching Newcastle against United the other day, unfortunately. And every time Newcastle had the ball, you could see something is about to happen. And that's a great feeling as a football fan, supporting your own club. Putting myself in that position from a United fan, I'm never on the edge of the seat. There's been times when they've scored and it's happened so unexpectedly, like there's no emotion. And it's like they've made me stone-hearted, right? And obviously, I'm not going to give up, and I'm not one of them who's going to say I'm going to stop watching football or go and support someone else. But it's a very tough period to be a fan at this point.
Indeed. But we end on a good note. I know one thing. If Man United do it on a given match day, that brings a smile to your face and you'd really enjoy. It's Højlund doing well. If Højlund does well, or Højlund buries a chance, or he runs in behind, or does something amazing, that's something that all Man United fans can get behind, because he is he's kind of your bright spark, your hope at the moment, right? The little wonder kid hoping to get to line. So if he does a good performance or scores a good goal, I think all Man United fans are happier than any other.
I mean, they'll get happy with anything at this moment. I think when against Everton, the way Kobbie Mainoo played, everybody was like, "This is it. He's our answer." And then he didn't play the next game until the club, right? But I think it's there's a lot of patience required. But yes, those little moments do feel good, like the Garnacho goal, for example. Højlund's goals in the Champions League were like really good. Like it was a good spark, good boost. But it's these decisions, I think match-defining moments where we're slipping, and I think the wrong substitution, the wrongly timed substitution. I think that's where the manager's credentials get shown. We've suffered where Ollie didn't have it in him, and I think I haven't seen anything of note from Ten Hag other than the half-time substitution, which doesn't always work.
And that's true as well, because like, look at your game changers from the bench. Like Liverpool have the strongest bench I can remember in recent seasons. My goodness, the drop off of quality is almost non-existent. Manchester City had that for many seasons, right? And when you need to hold out a game, you bring on Amrabat. I don't trust him to hold out the game for you. Or if you need a creative, someone who's going to get that final chance, an attacking midfielder runs past the line, like a Lampard. Mason Mount on the end of the ball to win you the game, he's going to scuff it. He hasn't got that.
I mean, the only time I've seen us having a successful sub is when Eriksen's come on and changed something, right? But fair enough, he's one player. Yes, he's not got the legs, or he's not got it in him to do it day in, day out every week, but he can still come on and make an impact. And I think he's been a positive this season. Yes, he's injured now. But again, this injury situation begs me to wonder, like, why are we having such a drama with injuries?
They're running. They're running, right? For reasons they don't know why.
See, the players aren't either mentally or emotionally fit enough to say, you know what, I need to put myself through this for the sake of the team, right? I've got one job. You're getting paid for it, right? End of the day, performing on the pitch is a job, right? Ronaldo famously said it. It's my job. What do you want me to do, right? And it's true. And I think players nowadays are a lot softer. I think, whether it's mentally but also physically, the physique may be there, but I don't think they have it in their bodies to, put in those kind of performances. And the football schedule is very, very heavy and intense, especially for the past couple of seasons with the World Cup and all the mix. It's been very hard on players. But if your medical department can't handle that, each player is different, right? I mean, you play a football game, you have to set up the health plan for each player. If you can't handle that on a player-by-player basis, and you've still got this mess, then something isn't right.
Yeah, no, I think that's a complete summary of Man United's season so far. Something isn't right. Not just something, a lot of things aren't right. And we'll probably end on that note. I know you're very keen to carry on. I know you actually meant to be here for half an hour, but you got too excited, carried away, and here we go at the hour mark. So thank you so much, Kash, for joining. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure we'll have you on again, and have a good day, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure. All the best.
Well, that was a fun, nice debate to get the juices flowing. The premiere of the Liverpool Fan in Japan podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Episode 1. Lots of content coming up soon. Until next time, guys. Catch you soon. Do remember to give this video a like. Helps put the video in front of people on people's feeds and get the channel seen as well. Subscribe if you haven't already. Lots of great stuff coming up. 2-0 against Sheffield United. Clean sheet. I'll take that any day. Till next time, guys. Sayonara.